everyone. This is Jeff James from Mythology, and in this particular video we're going to talk about really one of the most sort of buzz-generating topics in marketing, which is, of course, social media. And of course you've got companies and individuals that are just rushing ahead and just really embracing social media. You've got other people that have a lot of concerns, in terms of the policies, and what if we say the wrong thing, or what if people post negative comments about us. So this part of the workshop, I'm going to just basically talk about some of the structural strategy pieces of social media success. I'm not going to speak too much in terms of why you want to do it, because at this point, quite frankly, no matter what your industry is, there are some obvious reasons that you need to have a conversation with people via social media. And we can certainly talk about that separately as an issue. But in this portion of the workshop, I want to sort of lay out some fundamental structural planning elements that you should think about from a social media perspective. Now, of course, this is in the engagement pillar, and when we talk about engagement, we're talking about that sort of direct interaction with influencers and customers. And so social media is the place where this happens in today's internet world. So let's take a look at social media. The first thing, I just have social media goals here as sort of a platform, sort of something that everything sits on. One of the biggest challenges is that companies don't really think about why or what their goals are associated with social media efforts. And I think it's okay to experiment to a certain extent, but if you're going to invite people to a conversation via social media, and you're not really thinking about what you want to get out of it or what you want to put into it, it's probably going to fail. I mean, you might learn some things, but you should at least have a cursory conversation about how social media reflects into your customer segments and your goals associated with those customer segments. So I would definitely set a few goals, even if they're pilot goals, before you get started. Number one in social media, and we talk about content constantly, because content is the valuable information that you want to share with the customer segments that you've prioritized. In other words, this is you saying, these are the valuable things that we have to turn over to you, Mr. Customer, so that you're actually interested in us and engage us. So social media has to connect into your content strategy. And what the funny thing is about content, when we talk about that, people get a little bit excited because, like, how in the world are we going to become this big content publishing engine? And it's really not as complicated as you think it might be. You do have to start thinking in publishing terms. And so one of the things that we recommend at Mythology is to build an editorial calendar. So this is a simple plan for how your company will determine what's valuable to share and then put it in a schedule, just like a newspaper. And then you can sort of have a predictable launch plan for that content. Now, the beautiful thing about this is if you create one valuable piece of content a month or a week, social media allows you to pull out little snippets of that and share it on a more frequent basis. So let's say, for example, you did one quality blog post a week, and then you can actually pull out little comments or quotes from that and share that on a daily or even twice or 2 or 3 times a day basis via Twitter to get people engaged with it and then clicking back into the main blog post. So it's this sort of, social media is just a way of sharing some of this stuff. The other thing you should think about is an invitation to the process. Who are we inviting? Some people get a little bit upset that we don't have 100,000 followers on Twitter, or we don't have 100,000 likes on Facebook. So therefore, is it really that valuable? And you have to think about who you're inviting to the conversation. Who's most likely to click on the like button, or who's most likely to follow you on Twitter? And what your target is are those influencers that we talked about back in the understanding pillar. So it's not that you want everyone following you, but you definitely want the influential people who are going to be the ones that share your content with other people. Those are the ones that you really want engaged via social media, because they're going to tell other people about your stuff. So make sure you're inviting the influencers. and holding a really deep interactive conversation with them. Third is what we call intimacy. So what does it mean to be intimate with an individual or a group of people? Well, intimacy comes from familiarity, and that's something that we really want. We want a connection, emotional connection between a customer and us as a company. And so what kind of things, build intimacy and trust? Intimacy actually leads to trust. And so when you think about intimacy in just your personal life, we're talking about how frequently do you talk to people? If you see a friend from college, every 5 years at the reunion, you're probably not staying in very intimate contact with that friend. But if you're constantly calling and you go see each other and you visit each other's homes on a frequent basis, that's probably a pretty close friend. And it really is the same from a social media perspective. If you're only posting something on a pretty infrequent basis, then that doesn't give people a chance to truly get to know you. So that's one way to build intimacy. The other way is what we call authenticity. And when you are authentic in your personal relationships, that means you're sort of telling the truth, you're revealing certain things about yourself that are interesting and sort of give people a reason to trust you. And it truly is the same way with an organization. If an organization is being open and proactive and sharing information, even if it's good or bad, then that builds trust. So when you're doing that on a frequent basis, you can see how intimacy is grown, and therefore trust, and therefore loyalty, and the other good things that we want to build through social media. Only then, when you've thought about content strategy, invitations, who you're pulling into the conversation, and the type of intimate conversations and relationship that you want to build, finally, I would suggest at that point, thinking about the right social media platforms. Now, there are really just a handful of really big platforms that we're all aware of: Facebook, Twitter. In the business world, there's sort of LinkedIn, and there's other niche community, very specific community social sites that you might want to consider. But you got to think about, again, who it is you're trying to reach and hold these conversations with. If you are a B2B, sort of a business-to-business decision-maker focused group, Facebook probably isn't necessarily your main priority. However, on Twitter, a lot of business people follow different marketing gurus or business gurus on Twitter. But you also need to be thinking about a platform like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not the best social site, but it's actually structured fairly well so that you can have a business conversation on that. So you just need to kind of take those things into consideration. If it's more of a consumer thing, certainly Facebook is a slam dunk. And of course, over time, there'll be new tools. MySpace, really accelerated to the top, and then it's sort of declined recently. But trust me, you don't need to worry so much about the specific tool until you answer these questions, and then you can figure out what your platform is to match your audience. The final piece of platform is measurement. Many people are like, well, what are we going to get out of social media? We're putting so much time into our Facebook posts, and it just takes a lot of time. What are we getting out of it? And I would point you back to our video on search engine optimization, because that's the most inherently measurable thing that you have in your marketing arsenal. How many people are coming to your site? Where do they come from? Which part of your landing pages or other things are they going to? And social media is a great way to start those conversations, and you can start measuring how many people come back, and how many people friend you, and how many people retweet you, and are they pointing people back to the pages within your site that are most critical based on the audience. So it is entirely measurable, but you just want to set that up from the beginning based on your goals. So this all sort of plays together. So those are some initial thoughts. This is a really rich topic that we can go in even deeper, but we've put some interesting social media planning and evaluation tools next to this video, so you can go a little bit deeper and you can start planning some of this for yourself.